Welcome. My name is Sylvia Peregrino, and I'm a professor of government here at El Paso Community College. Our guest today is Mr. Curtis Smith. He is part of the EPCC diversity programs, and he is one of our community partners. And so today we'll be discussing the events coming up with Black History Month this month and how you can be part of this because they will be virtual. And so welcome, Mr. Smith.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Mr. Smith, tell us, how did you first become involved with diversity programs?
Wow, it's been I've been with them for like 3 years. It's just been I started off with the voter registration. So we did a panel discussion on voter registration, how important voter registration was at the Kenworthy campus. And then from there, I was called back again to be on another panel. And then finally, the department head said, hey, would you like to be a part of the council here at the Diversity and Inclusion? And I was like, sure, I love that. She said, we like your ideas. But I think Lee took over as of last year when she retired. So it's been a great ride. I really enjoy being a part of that department.
And what first brought you to El Paso, to the El Paso area?
The military. I'm a retired veteran, 24 years. Yeah, I retired here at Fort Bliss. And then I decided to stay because cost of living out here is a lot cheaper than living on the East Coast.
Don't I know it? I went to school in New York City, so you live in a closet for thousands of dollars a month. Well, thank you for your service, sir, and thank you for continuing your service to the community by being part of our diversity programs. Right. And so tell us, what do we have in store for this month?
Oh, wow. We got a Black History program that's going to be out of sight. We got the theme, we're going by the national theme this year, which is health and wellness. So we have a lot of panel discussions. We have a great keynote speaker. So starting the kickoff is actually February 22nd. And it's going to be with Dr. Okachiko Alosi. And he's going to talk about health and wellness. And it's going to be an open discussion. So he's going to do his keynote speaker, and then he's going to allow for questions and answers. So that's going to be the kickoff, and it's going to be great, and that's going to be virtual. So everybody's invited. The whole, it doesn't have to be, you just have to RSP and register through the EPCC website. And once that happens, we're going to continue on the following week with the eating right. We're going to have some nutrition. Yeah, we're going to have nutrition. So we're going to talk nutrition. And, with COVID going on, a lot of us put on weight. I put on some weight.
I know the COVID-19 is also 19 pounds.
Yeah, so, we weren't able to go outside a lot. So they're going to come in and show us some meals that we can eat to help us kind of maintain or lose the weight, so we can be healthier and live healthier. One of the dishes is going to be vegan dishes. So if you like vegan, for those that don't eat meat, and they're going to show you a couple of dishes that you can eat to eat healthy, or they're going to talk about it. And that's also going to be a panel discussion where questions and answers is going to be, you can say, hey, I have diabetes or I have high blood pressure. What kind of food can I eat to help me maintain or lose the weight or continue to be healthy? And then we're going to transition with our last program the month, which is going to be mental health and testing. And as you know, with us having to be in the house the whole time during COVID for the last, 2 years, it's mind-boggling. And like a friend of mine saying, people are losing jobs and can't get a job, or they're just scared to go out. So transitioning back to going back out and mingling amongst people and being in crowds, it could be something that could affect them mentally, and also it could help them. They could tell you ways to do different things. Like I do crossword puzzles. I could do like different things like that to help me while I had to stay in the house. So they're going to talk about that, and that's also going to be a panel discussion as well, and it's going to be questions and answers. And like I said, all of these programs that we're having virtually, it's open to the public. And then at the end, we have during that time we have some art exhibits as well. 3 local artists is going to show some paintings of Black history to give us a little bit of insight on what's going on and what their thoughts are, and just give you something a little different taste, And
that's great that everything's going to be virtual.
Yeah.
And I know that people will be familiar with Dr. Alozzi from seeing him on TV
Yeah.
talking about the pandemic.
Right.
How did you come up with getting him as our keynote speaker?
Well, I'm also a podcast host for Suite 915, El Paso Voice. So with me being on those virtual podcasts under the Mocha umbrella, we had him come in and talk about COVID because the numbers were rising so much, and people were saying things that were inaccurate as far as shots and getting COVID and how you transmit COVID and stuff like that. So we had him come on and talk about that and talk about the numbers, and he encouraged us to wear the proper mask, and as we transition to 2022, we encouraged to get the booster shot because a lot of people thinking, oh, I already took the shot. So we had him come on to give us some updates because he works with that a lot. You know, he said he works with COVID patients all the time. So we asked him to come on and give us some updates and some insight on what's the pros and cons, or what's right and what's wrong, and what's to get away from the things that people are saying that's incorrect.
And I think that's important. In this show, we actually partnered with Texas Tech and also had some of their medical school faculty talk about the misconceptions, because I think sometimes there's distrust in communities of color, because sometimes there's been experimentation and negative things. But I know that I've taken my booster shot, and you know, I wear my mask today because we're filming. This is one of our first in-person shows, but we did take precautions, and we are taking precautions. But we do encourage everybody to wear a mask to these events.
Yes, and the proper mask. Like he said, the K95, N95 mask, he said that's a lot better than, because of the new variant that came out. He said that the K95 is a lot better than just people wearing scarves around their faces and made up masks that they're selling in the public. You know, he gave us a little insight on that as well, to say, you know, get away from that. You know, it looks good, but does it really protect you? You know, so those things that were great to have him on. So that's why we said, for health and wellness, let's bring somebody that has the numbers, that can tell you about health and wellness. You know, so. He agreed, so we brought him on.
No, that's wonderful. And I know you mentioned that it's going to be virtual, so people from the audience will be able to ask questions and have it from a medical professional. Yeah.
And then if they have questions prior to that, they can go to the EPCC website as well, Diversity and Inclusion, and submit their questions so that we can ask him ahead of time and say, hey, Dr. Alozzi, we have this question that one of the audience members have that has sent in earlier. Can you answer that question? And that gives us a little bit of flow time and you know, cut down on the dry space in the conversation. But I think he's going to do really well. He's pretty good. He's pretty laid back, and I think if you met him, you'd be like, "Oh, he's pretty cool." Yeah.
No, I haven't had the privilege, but I've seen him on TV, so I was excited when I heard about the fact that we were able to get him to be our keynote.
Right.
And that ties into the theme of mental health.
Yeah.
And I think you brought up some interesting points that with the pandemic, it's been hard to just deal with it, and I think you have. People that are very precautious, and then other people that are in denial. And so,
and some people that are so cautious, they said, "Oh, I stayed home and I didn't do anything. How did I catch COVID?" Well, because like Dr. Alozzi says, everybody has a date with COVID. You know, it could have been your underlying health conditions that, you know, somebody might have came in your house that you didn't know, that been around a lot of other people. You know, so it's an airborne disease. So, you know, it depends on who you allowed to be around you, you know, dropping off the groceries or something like that, you know.
Yeah, you never know. So I think that's why for us at EPCC, we're staying away from doing the live events and trying. But I think in a way it's also good because it gives us a chance to go into everybody's home.
Exactly.
And so normally we'd have a space where we could fit a couple hundred people, but with this we could open it up to the whole area.
I think we have a wider view as well, because everybody, even to include the students, you know. That's why the diversity and inclusion program, we encourage them to to come on and even establish a platform within the diversity and inclusion with their new ideas. What do they want to hear about? What do they want to see with the EPCC? So just, give them the opportunity to see that there are different things going on within the school. So it's a great thing.
And as part of the diversity programs, do you get information about the national themes, or how does that get disseminated to the universities and colleges?
Well, we get the national theme. We find out what the national theme is, and then we go from there. We establish our program. Our committees get together. We start talking about it early. Like we started on this in December, November. I think in November we started. In November we started having committee meetings to talk about what's the theme going to be. But we started talking about what we want to have first. What do we want to do for Black History Month? And then we found a theme, and then we just established. We went by the theme and started talking about, let's get this person to talk about the theme and stuff like that. So that's where it happens. And that's with all the programs. Like we have other various programs too. We do Hispanic Heritage Month, Indian Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Heritage Month. So everybody gets a spotlight. It's not just, so like you say, EPCC is a diverse university, college. So with that being said, everybody gets a spotlight. So we're not just saying we're focused on this group or that group. Everybody gets a spotlight. So that's a great thing with that program, with the diversity inclusion program.
No, and I think it's good to include everybody. We're a majority Hispanic city, but we do have 4% African American population, and then nationwide, the African American population is about 13%. Yeah. You bring up a good topic, that there's also intersectionality. So there's Black Latinos, and so I think it's good to have these months where we highlight different members of the community.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know Women's History Month is coming up next month. Have you been active in that as well?
Oh, well. We're closing this out, and then we'll move into that. We're probably already working on it, but it's behind the scenes. So when we get to Lee will probably say, okay, let's move to Women's History Month, and I think that'll be great. We got to highlight the women, because women are doing some great things. Lawyers and judges and politicians, and they're doing a lot of great things within the United States that we have to highlight them. Generals, 4-star generals now are women. So we gotta pay our respects to the women that make it happen for us.
Wonderful. I couldn't agree more. I would also like to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, that you first got involved with voter registration, and I wanted to mention to our folks that are watching that early voting is going to start in mid-February as well. February 14th through the 25th, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Why do you think it's important for people to know the history and to be involved?
It's about the right to have the right to vote. There was a lot of people that lost their lives, a lot of people that were involved that people lost their families and friends, and people disconnected with them because they were fighting for women's rights to vote, and African Americans and people of color to vote. So to include our Latino population as well, you didn't have a right to vote at one time. So it's important, but we have to get the younger people to understand how important it is. And when you tell them it's about the history of it, and people lost their lives, and people walked many miles and got beat up and sprayed with water for you to have the right to vote, you have to educate them on why it's important. And I think education is the most important part about voting registration, because you'll say, hey, you need to vote. And they'll say, why? Nothing's going to change. Well, especially for the local elections, they don't understand the local elections is where the House of Representatives and the Senate make the rules. So at your local elections, that's the most important one. The presidential election is good, but the local elections, like right now, county commissioners going on, other seats are going to change, I think, next year. So with that being said, we got to get involved. We got to teach the young people about the importance of voting.
No, and here I think that the U.S. owes a great deal to the African American community, because with Martin Luther King, the March on Selma, I think the African American community pushed voting rights, and other communities benefited as well.
Yeah.
I know I teach government, so sometimes I talk about the Southwest Voter Registration Project, and they emulated a lot of the door-to-door knocking and getting people to register to vote that they saw the African American community do in the South. And I know you're not originally from El Paso, but I don't know if you know this, Dr. Lawrence Nixon, there's an elementary school named after him in the EPISD.
Oh, yeah.
He was the first African American physician from the NAACP who challenged the white primary, because here in Texas, only white people, non-Hispanic whites, could vote in primary elections. And like today, the primary elections that we're having in March, they're going to decide the candidate in November.
Okay.
And so African Americans couldn't vote in those. And here, Dr. Lawrence Nixon made history at the national level by challenging the white primary.
Okay.
He unfortunately his lawsuit in the 20s wasn't successful.
Yeah.
But then in 1944, they did get rid of the white primary in Smith versus Albright.
All right. That's good
But I'm thankful to, I went to school in the East Coast, and a lot of my mentors were African American, and so I think that there should be solidarity between the Latino community and the African American community.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they try to split the communities because we're stronger in solidarity, right?
Yeah, we're stronger in numbers, and we teach each other about that, because I've seen, I went to the exhibit downtown, the art exhibit down in the museum downtown. That was like my first time going there in a couple of years. I went there, and there's history down there. There's history down there where Latinos went through some of the same things that blacks went through in Texas, here in Texas. So I was like, wow, I didn't know they were indentured servants and serving and worked in the plantation houses and picked cotton. And I was like, wow, that's deep.
And a lot of Latinos were lynched, similar
exactly.
to
Exactly. And like I said, when I went down, I was like, whoa, I didn't know all that was going on in Texas. It's like, wow, that's deep. So yeah, there's history down there, and like you say, we got to educate the young people because they don't understand, and that's where I think some of the presidential candidates are looking at as well, saying, hey, we want the young people because, you're growing, your numbers are growing, we're dying off. We're telling them, hey, you need to vote, but they don't understand the importance of voting. So once we tell them how important it is, and like you say, you're in government, and you explain to them the process and how long it took for you to even have the right to vote. And for you to just say, oh, I don't want to vote, nothing's going to change. You don't know that. Look at the Northeast. We have an Olive Garden in the Northeast now. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, because we talk to our local representatives and say, this is what we want. And if you can't give it to us, then, hey, we're not voting for you. We're going to give you a check for what? So we can have the roads are still tore up and there's nothing in the Northeast, but the east side, the far east side is growing and the west side is growing with all the nice stuff. We want some of those nice amenities as well. Give us a nice Olive Garden, and we're not going to tear it up. So we're thankful for that. They're here. We have the water park over there as well. So
yeah, and I think that's I tell my students that sometimes that why are there more senior centers than stuff for young people? Mm-hmm. And it's because the seniors vote.
Yep.
And young people sometimes perhaps don't see the importance,
exactly.
And they're not as active, so they don't do. So our local elected leaders don't do as much for them because they know that they don't come out to vote.
Exactly, and they don't let their voice be heard. Once you let your voice be heard, they'll listen, because you say, if you don't support what I'm trying to bring to El Paso, then I'm not going to vote for you. And then when they don't see that they won, then they'll come back to that community and say, oh well, what do you want? Tell me, what do you want? What can I do for you? So they'll see it, but they have to, like I say, get educated about the importance of voting.
And has diversity programs, so before, when we were doing live events, you were doing voter outreach and things like that?
Well, I'm a part of various other organizations within El Paso, the Prince Hall Shriners, the Masons. So we do those things as well. We don't endorse candidates. According to our policy, we're not allowed to endorse candidates. However, we we highly encourage people to vote. So I'm also a voter registrar downtown. So if I'm out and I see somebody and I ask people, hey, you registered to vote? I could do that, because I have the paperwork to say I'm registered to vote, to have people vote, and I just fill out the forms and give them the forms. We have it in English and Spanish. So all you need is a driver's license or an address saying you live here in El Paso, and that's all you need to vote.
Yeah, and U.S. citizenship
Yep.
as well.
It's not a lot of paperwork. Yes.
Yeah.
U.S. citizen, you can vote. People don't, and people are being told the wrong thing, and that's why we have to continue with our programs where we're educating. We're saying, hey, these are the rules to vote, because people will say, oh, because you don't live here or you live on this side of town, you can't register to vote. That's not true. Or if you're coming from another state to El Paso, to Texas, and you want to vote, you just transfer your information to Texas and they'll send you a voter registration card. That's a lot of things we had issues with when we were doing voter registration a couple of years ago. People were saying, well, I'm not from here. I just moved here. Okay, well, put your information and transfer your information here, and then they'll tell you what to do downtown.
Yeah, as long as they're living here and
Yep.
have been here more than 30 days,
Exactly.
they can register.
Exactly. So those things are important. And like I said, people got to just get out there and educate. We as voter registrars have to get out there and,
Encourage
people. Yeah.
Well, I think diversity programs is doing some wonderful work.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to hearing from Dr. Alozzi. How about with the mental health panel? What kind of people are you bringing for that?
But I know we have a couple of nurse practitioners that are going to be in there talking about mental health. That's familiar, that works in that field to talk about mental health and testing, So just to give you a little insight on what's the new thing, Alzheimer's. People don't realize they're having Alzheimer's, and they're going to tell you some of the things you can do to prevent those type of things. You know what I mean? So I think with having them on the panel is going to help out.
Well, I think we're almost coming to the end of our time. If we could just reiterate some of the dates so that it can be fresh in people's minds.
Okay.
So the KickUp event with Dr. Alozzi is
February 19th.
February 19th, and like you mentioned, it'll be available through Teams.
Yes.
And how can people have to pre-register,
Yes.
right?
You have to. You can pre-register, and you can, if you request the link, you can just get the link through the EPCC Diversity and Inclusion part.
Which one is first, the nutrition panel or the mental health?
You have the keynote speaker for Dr. Alozzi. 24th will be the nutrition, and then the following that will be the mental health panel.
We hope that everybody participates. Since it's virtual, you all have the opportunity to join us.
Yeah.
It's important to commemorate Black History Month, and I'm happy that we're going with a national theme.
Yeah, and I ask that you continue to support the diversity and inclusion program, and any suggestion that you may have, go to epcc.edu diversity and inclusion and give us your comments, give us some feedback, let us know what we can do better. What do you want to see us put on, as far as programs for this year? So, and we'll get right on it.
And I also want to take the time to thank you for being a valued community partner.
Hey, no problem.
I think it's, we're lucky here in El Paso that we get so many people from the military. And so people have heard of El Paso because they end up getting stationed here. And I'm glad that you liked El Paso so much that you decided to make it your home. And you're doing so much by working with us in diversity programs.
I love it.
So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add. We're almost at the end of time.
Well, like I said, just continue to support the program, and any ideas that you have, just come get with us, and we'll add it. We'll try to get in and add it.
Well, I know I'm going to tell my students to watch Dr. Alozzi and the rest of the panels.
I know what Lee said. Lee said today to tell him, hey, you get extra credit if you watch the program and give some feedback.
That's a thought. Yeah,
professors,
I encourage them to be part of community EPCC community events. So definitely, it's good for them to see role models, people that they can look up to and aspire to be.
Yeah. Yeah, the different things that we got going on, we like to hear some feedback. Just tell us what we can do better, you know.
Well, you've put together a great series, and I'm looking forward to watching it. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for Women's History Month next month.
Yeah, got a great program.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
being here.